Hello and welcome to the CITL Research and Practice Brief Series. The purpose of this series is to have conversations around the innovative technology used in special education and leadership personnel preparation programs. Today, we have AJ Naatz as our guest expert to share his research and practice on special education teachers' use of generative AI. AJ is a doctoral candidate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a former special education teacher. His research focuses on how emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence can enhance collaborative planning and instructional design for students with extensive support needs. Welcome, AJ. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you here today. Let's dive right in. What issues are you trying to address through your work?
Really kind of focusing in on this article, we wanted to fill a knowledge gap, primarily around how much teachers are actually using generative AI in classrooms. We hear it about AI everywhere in news headlines, in podcasts. The U.S. Department of Education had released tons of guidance and expectations of how to use AI. So we wanted to get a real snapshot of what special education teachers in Wisconsin are using as far as tools, how much. And then also with that, we wanted to explore why a teacher might adopt these technologies into their planning, into their teaching practices. Again, kind of get at that root of then that kind of guides us of what we can recommend to teachers, how we can plan trainings, how we can provide any sort of recommendations on how teachers can use these tools. And also with that, exploring should we be recommending teachers using these, which I think is a whole other study or direction of a conversation. But those are really the two main things to look at: how frequently are these special education teachers using the tools, and then why do they adopt them in the first place?
Hmm. Can you introduce the theoretical framework that guided your study?
And so there was really two key theories that we ended up mashing together. First being the theory of planned behavior, and then we pulled in the technology acceptance model. So when we first looked at the theory of planned behavior, we wanted to, and we're looking at why these teachers are adopting tools. We thought it was a great fit of the theory of planned behavior is kind of focused to understand why humans behave in a certain way. We have this intention and then we behave a certain way. And so the theory of planned behavior looks at kind of three factors that go into our decision making and behaviors. First being our attitudes about an intention, about a behavior, and then also the subjective norms. So, what are the people around me doing as far as this behavior goes? And then last being the perceived behavioral control. So what a person thinks they have control over when it comes to their intention and behavior. And then the technology acceptance model is very similar. We saw similarities in themes and overlap in that it's still looking at intention and behavior, but with that technology lens. So why does a teacher accept technology? Or not just teachers, but humans in general. And first, again, being attitudes about the technology. But then it also pulls in external factors and perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness. So similar again with the two theories, but what we decided to do is pull them together. And when we're looking at AI use and AI adoption, it's really all of those things. It's our attitudes. It's how easy it is to use. Is it useful in my practice? But then knowing external variables, the contexts we're in, how much access we have to technology in our schools, in our teaching practices, all play a factor in our intention and our behaviors. So when we look at the behavior, it's adopting and using technology, but what's the intention behind that? And so there is a figure attached to our article that really shows how those interactions come together to help humans make decisions about whether or not they are going to use technology, or in this case, AI.
I think those are the very interesting theoretical frameworks to think about teachers' intent of using technology and the factors involved in decision making to actually use AI in their educational settings.
Mhm.
So, can you briefly walk us through your research process and the key findings?
Yeah, happy to. So, with this article, what we did was we designed an exploratory survey. And so, again, highlighting that it's exploratory, this was not a validated survey, partially because how quickly technology and AI is adapting and evolving, wanting to get that clear snapshot of how frequently are special ed teachers using this tool. So we developed a survey over many iterations, and we used a pilot group to say, hey, you could fix this, you could fix this, but we structured it into kind of five categories aligned with our theoretical framework to get at their attitudes, to get at the external factors, some of these things that again drive people to adopt technology. And then from there, we took a random proportified or proportional stratified sample of the locale codes in Wisconsin. So here in Wisconsin, we have urban districts, we have suburban districts, we have town districts, and then we have rural districts. So there's kind of four of them. And so what we did was what we randomized half of each of those locale codes. And from there, a lot of sleuthing through public facing special education teacher emails. Created a directory of, I think, somewhere around 3,150 emails across Wisconsin. And so that's in a way half of the special education teachers in Wisconsin, at least in public schools. And so sent it to 3,150 of them. And we ended up getting 314 responses. So about six short of 10% response rate, but really close to that 10% response rate. And then from there, again, we looked at frequency of how frequently they're using it, and then the factors that influence their use. So first being the frequency, we collected on a 5-point ordinal scale, looking at teachers starting with they've never used AI at all. Second being they've used it once or twice, but never again. Third being they use it monthly. Fourth, weekly, and the last one being I use this daily all the time in my practices. And interestingly, and not maybe what we were expecting, but 80% of the respondents either have never used it, have used it once or twice, or use it monthly. So uh, really, it showed us that teachers, special ed teachers in Wisconsin, are more in the exploratory phase. And also adding that this was taken in spring of 2024. Here we are about a year and a half later. It could be wildly different, but at this time, it showed us that teachers aren't really adopting these into their daily practices as maybe we expected them to be, as it's in the headlines every day. We hear it on the news. We're seeing podcasts coming out, and so it was a little surprising to us. And only 5% of our respondents noted daily use. And again, that was a very small number. That was the least category selected. And gave us a good picture into, okay, they're not really using these every single day. And then when we looked at the frequency or the factors that influence teachers adopting these technologies, we used ordinal logistic regression, and to look at really all of these different factors associated. There were different demographic information, and then again tied to our theoretical framework. And there were two factors that emerged as very significant as positive coefficients, that had p-value of less than 0.001. And those, almost not surprisingly, were their attitudes about AI and then the contextual factors surrounding them. So with the contextual factors that ranged from admin support, the access to technologies, policies regarding AI in classrooms and in teaching. And those really aligned directly with our theoretical framework of attitudes matter, and so do the things surrounding teachers. And those two really emerged as significant predictors when we're looking at how frequently special ed teachers. And then one factor emerged, which was minimally significant, but also still something to note, was the age. As teachers got older, less likely to use and adopt AI. So again, not necessarily surprising, but also significant and should be noted that as teachers get older, less likely to use these tools.
So how do these findings inform the teacher preparation program?
That's a good question. And I think it's first of like, if do we want these teachers to use these tools? And if we do, I think one key takeaway is that teachers need structured time to explore these tools and to build positive attitudes around it. And that includes setting up a context that supports the use of AI, admins who support it, professional development about how to use it in their teaching practices, about how to use it ethically and effectively. Because if it's not ethical or teachers don't think it's ethical, that's going to impact their attitudes about it. And so we really need to then focus on building positive attitudes about AI, and not necessarily just putting a ban on things. We look at banning books, and those are now the most popular books in the world. And so I think there's kind of that similar thread in AI is if we just put a hard ban on it, teachers are still going to probably use it, but they're not going to use it ethically, or they're not going to be trained on how to use it. And so that's something to consider, and not just for pre-service teachers, but also for the in-service teachers. And so wanting that to be a big piece for training with AI is just provide that opportunity to explore and to see how to use it in your context, and so that teachers are informed and not just using these tools almost behind the curtain a little bit.
I appreciated that you pointed out that AI can be used in a good and bad way. So instead of banning it, it's better to just let them know the right way to use it more efficiently and more responsibly. So
Absolutely.
what gaps and opportunities do you see for future research, and what are some questions we might be asking?
Yeah, and I think it's almost a perfect segue into the ethical use of what's the actual impact of these tools. Sure, they may not be using it frequently, or there are certain factors that go into their use, but our study doesn't necessarily dive into how do these tools impact teacher practices, and with that, how does it impact student engagement or student learning? And so, does it actually like increase engagement in our classes? Does it increase our individualized instruction, or enhance that, or is it just strictly to save time? And I think this was something actually that Dr. Marino has in an article where, sure, it may save us time, but is it empowering students and empowering their families to engage more, and to succeed in our classroom? So I think that's really the first one. And then coming to this from the lens of a teacher of students with significant support needs is, should students use these tools, is also a question I think that needs exploring in I think just ethically. And I know there's kind of a conversation of it's really diminishes critical thinking skills, but also these tools have amazing capabilities in providing access and accommodations to students with extensive support needs. So if I see a tool that can instantly generate text or adapt text to any reading level, or can generate a podcast about their specialized interests, and get instructions, or students get instructions in real time on how to do a task, I think that my mind goes in the direction of like, how can we leverage these tools to help students succeed not only in the classroom but in employment, in independent living. And so I think that how we can kind of bridge that gap between teachers using these tools and students using these tools without dipping too far into just celebrating all the positive parts of AI, because there are other sides that need to be explored. And then with kind of both of those questions, I'm also a believer that we need research that centers teacher and student voices in what we do. And that's part of what I'm doing with my dissertation is centering teacher voices in AI use. And so making sure that no matter what we do, humans and students are at the center of our decision making when it comes to AI.
I agree that we know a lot about the potential benefits and risk of AI, but it's now the time to have more empirical evidence on how actually it impacts students and teachers. What else should teacher preparation programs consider moving forward?
Yeah, and this was maybe my favorite question to think about. Was I think what I would share with faculty members or folks in higher ed is your pre-service teachers are using AI tools, whether you ban it in your syllabus or not. They're using it. As someone who spends too much time in the library, I walk around and I see 95% of students with AI pulled up on one of their screens. That's how students kind of engage in learning now. And so it takes a total rethinking of assignments, of course structure, when we are asking students to generate lesson plans or write a discussion post. Those can easily be done using AI. And so almost rephrasing it as focusing on skills of being a teacher compared to tasks of being a teacher. I think about my pre-service teacher program, and it was a ton of getting good at the tasks, getting good at writing an IEP, getting good at generating a lesson plan. And I think with AI is going to force us to focus more on the actual skills. So adaptability, creativity, our personal identities, behavior management, organization, public speaking, and I could go on and on about the skills that make a good teacher matter more than kind of these things that can just be generated with AI. And so again, rethinking what course structure looks like and what our assignments in our in-class activities look like. So maybe it's a flipped classroom model where we do all of the assignments in class together, where we have them shut their computers and learn how to be a teacher. Or a lot of maybe case study work where we pull in a scenario and we're going to discuss it, or we're going to create a lesson based on this in real time, almost that impromptu teaching skills. And so again, that underlying of just assume your students are using AI because they are, and then plan accordingly.
Yeah, that's a great point. What resources, tools, or practices would you recommend for educators who want to explore AI integration in special education?
Yeah, good question. I To this, I would say just play. Have
Mm.
fun and play with these tools. I'm not sure I would sit here and recommend a specific platform or tool. I would suggest using more of this general large language model. And so your Chat GPTs, your Google Geminis, your Cloud Anthropics, there's tons of different models to explore with, and just have fun and not necessarily starting with how to use it as a teacher, but how to just have fun with these tools. So I always start with undergrads or with graduate students in generate restaurant recommendations near you, plan a vacation of place that you've always wanted to visit. Generate a song lyrics based on your interests. These things that start to open people up into the possibilities of what these tools can do. And then along with that, of like do it with somebody. Sit down with someone and share what you're doing and how you're doing it, and almost spread the word a little bit, because it's fun to engage with others while doing that, and then don't be afraid, yeah, to share what you're doing, and then as you get better, start to think about it in your own contexts. Every teacher has a completely different role in a school. You could be more in a co-taught setting. You could be in just a general ed teacher in high school, middle school, elementary school. You could be more in the self-contained classroom space. And so think about it in your specific contexts. What are things you do every single day in a classroom or in your planning? And then try to use AI to do that. And as you play and as you explore, hopefully kind of opening up the possibilities of how to use it in your specific context. And then as far as resources, one book I share with folks as a kind of a really maybe light and easy read with tons of great examples, and also some good background information of how these tools work, or sometimes in this case of how they don't work, is Co-Intelligence by
Mm.
Ethan Mollick. Is very very easy, accessible, a book to read. It's short, and also Ethan Mollick, his Substack is a great way to find readings. And then as far as podcasts go, I bounce around a lot. TED Tech is one of my favorites because so many really short 15-minute podcasts about AI in many different fields, not just education, which again kind of opens up your thinking to how to apply these tools in your own context. And then also almost the opposite perspective of using AI is a podcast called Better Offline, where it's very not necessarily pessimistic, but it forces you to think about maybe the non AI users out there in their perspective on why we shouldn't use these tools, or things that we need to be cautious about, which I think is really important that we explore not only the incredible possibilities, but also these potential drawbacks and major concerns that folks have with AI. And so, yeah, I think those are really the main resources. But it comes down to just play around and try to have fun with these tools, and go from there.
Yeah, I agree that teachers who know how to use AI in their own lives can help students use AI in their authentic life and context. And I appreciate all the resources you shared.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to wrap up, thank you, AJ, for sharing your research on special education teachers' use of generative AI. And I appreciate your time and look forward to learning more about your work. So for more information about CITL research and practice briefs and other resources, please go to citl.org. Don't forget to follow us on social media, subscribe to our channel, and leave us a message. Thank you all for joining us.